Good day, student of School of Continuing Education. My name is Ahmed Aminuddin Abubakar. I am the facilitator for Module 9 on ethical considerations, copyright rules, and infringement under the course GST 111 Communication in English. Now, the introduction. This module is designed to introduce students to some of the ethical issues to be considered in the conduct of academic activities. Also discusses the application of copyright rules and how a student will avoid infringing on the right of others in the conduct of academic activities. The module concentrates on the following subtopics. The first subtopic is on ethical considerations. Under it, we have concept of ethics and ethical consideration, types of ethical issues, and principle of ethical considerations. The second subtopic is on the copyright rules and infringement. Under it, we have concept of copyright infringement, types of copyright and infringement, ethical consideration in copyright, plagiarism, and citation and referencing in academic writing. Beginning with the first subtopic, that is on ethic and ethical consideration. Ethics is derived from the Greek word ethos and is the same with moral, because the Latin words mores, from which moral is derived, represent the Greek word. Both of these two words imply customs, habits, or way of life. Ethics, according to Shamu and Resnick, implies standard of conduct or behavior that distinguish between right and wrong, good and bad. To this end, the term ethical and moral are used interchangeably in this course material. Ethics refers to the study of moral and relate to moral principles, values, and rules of conduct governing the individual or a community, whereas moral concern the distinction between good and bad, fair and unfair, praiseworthy and blameworthy, or right and wrong. Ethics searches for reason for action, of refraining from acting, for approving or not approving conduct, for believing or denying something about virtuous or vicious conduct, or good or evil rules. With this, we can say ethical considerations in academic activities are crucial to maintaining integrity. Not only that, even the quality and trustworthiness of research and scholarship activities. Types of ethics. Ethical considerations and ethics can be categorized into several types, each addressing different aspects of moral philosophy and decision making. Here are some key types or forms of ethics and ethical consideration. Beginning with the first one, normative ethics. Normative ethics is a system of moral principles that tell us what we ought to do in various situations. These principles can be derived from our understanding of what is good or bad, right or wrong, which focuses on establishing standard of norms for behavior. It seeks to determine what actions are right or wrong and what moral principles should guide behavior. It is the branch of moral philosophy of ethics concerned with criteria of what is morally right or wrong. It includes the formulation of moral rules that have direct implications for what humans' action, institution, and what ways of life should be like. Normative ethics are important because they provide a framework for how we ought to behave in various situations. They help us determine what is right and wrong and can guide us in making decisions about what to do in difficult situations. The next step of ethics is professional ethics. Professional ethics refers to the ethical standard and principle that govern specific profession such as medicine, law, engineering, librarianship, and academia. These guidelines help professionals navigate ethical dilemmas in their fields. Professional ethics are also the set of moral standards that define the professional conduct that is expected in all fields of human endeavor because it explores the obligations of individuals within the perspective of their professional lives. One principal concern is with the kinds of obligations and responsibilities those professionals, that is the journalists, be it the teachers, be it the physicians, engineers, ministers, public administrators, accountants, and managers, to mention but a few, have to their various stakeholders, such as clients, employers, employees, professional colleagues, and other professionals of the society. The next step of ethics is environmental ethics. Environmental ethics addresses the moral relationship between humans and the environment. It considers the implications of human actions on nature and advocates for protection of ecosystem and biodiversity. Is it right for humans to cut trees anyhow or to pollute the environment? All these are part of environmental ethics. Next is social ethics. Social ethics examine the ethical consideration of social policies and practices. This type of ethics normally focuses on issues such as justice, equality, and the common good, often addressing systematic inequalities and societal responsibilities. Next is animal ethics, which focuses on moral status of animals and our obligation toward them. It also examines issues related to animal rights, welfare, and ethical treatment of animals in various contexts. The last type of ethics is corporate ethics, which involve ethical principles that guide the behavior of businesses and organizations. It addresses issues such as corporate social responsibility, ethical marketing, and fair labor practices, etc., etc. All these types of ethics goes a long way to determine and provide framework for understanding and addressing moral issues across various contexts, helping individuals and organizations make informed and responsible decisions. Ethical consideration in research. Ethical consideration in academic activities are vital for maintaining trust, integrity, quality, and trustworthiness in research practice and journal scholarship. Academic and institutions must continually evaluate, examine, and adhere to all the ethical standards in order to foster a culture of integrity, respect, and responsibility in scholarship and learning. Ethical consideration in research also refers to an accumulation of values and principles that addresses question of what is good or bad in research activities. Ethically, the goal of human research often include understanding real-life phenomena, studying effective treatments, investigating behaviors, and improving the lives in other ways. What you decide to research and how you conduct the research involve key ethical consideration and they are expected to what? One, to protect the rights of research participants, two, to enhance research validity, and three, to maintain scientific or academic integrity. Principles of ethical consideration in research. The practical and ethical considerations serve as a foundational guidelines that helps students and researchers navigate moral dilemmas in academic writing. Here are some key principles. Voluntary participation. Voluntary participation means that all research subjects are free to choose to participate without any pressure or coercion, meaning that all participants are able to withdraw from or leave the study at any point without feeling an obligation to continue. Participants don't need to provide any reason for leaving the study. Therefore, it is important to make it clear to participants in the conduct of the research that there are no negative consequences or repercussions to their refusal to participate. Informed consent. Informed consent refers to a situation in which all potential participants receive and understand all the information they need to decide whether they want to participate. This includes information about the study's benefit risk, funding, and even institutional approval. Participants should be made aware of how their data will be used, stored, and shared. This is what we call transparency. Next is anonymity. Anonymity means that you don't know who the participants are and you can't link any individual participant to their data. A research can only guarantee anonymity by not collecting any personally identifying information, for example, names, phone numbers, email addresses, IP addresses, physical characteristics, photos, and videos. In many cases, it may be impossible to truly anonymize data collection. For example, data collected in person or by phone cannot be considered fully anonymous because some personal identifiers, like demographic information, are impossible to hide. Next is potential for harm. Refers to a situation whereby the researcher considered all possible sources to harm participants before the conduct of the study. Harm can come in many different formats. It could be psychological harm, which is sensitive question or tags that may trigger negative emotions such as shame or anxiety. Or it could be a social harm, where participation can involve social risks, public embarrassment, or stigma. Or it could be physical harm, where pain or injury can result from the study procedures. Or it could be even a legal harm by reporting sensitive data which lead to legal risks or breach of privacy. The next principle of ethical consideration in research is confidentiality and privacy. That is the obligation to protect private information and respect individual privacy. In other words, it implies that you know who the participants are, but you remove all identifying information from your report, meaning that all the participants have a right to privacy, so you should protect their personal data for as long as you store or use it. Even when you can't collect data anonymously, you should secure confidentiality wherever you can. This principle is particularly important in fields such as healthcare and research, where sensitive information is often shared. Next is result communication. The way you communicate your research result can sometimes involve ethical issues. Good science communication is honest, reliable, and credible. It is best to make your result as transparent as possible. Take steps to actively avoid plagiarism and research misconduct wherever possible. Next is data protection. Protecting sensitive information, researchers and academic institutions must safeguard the privacy of participants and the confidentiality of their data. This should be implemented through data security, whereby measures are implemented to protect personal and sensitive information from unauthorized access. These principles provide a framework for ethical decision making across various contexts, guiding students and researchers in their pursuit of moral integrity and social responsibility in academic writing. Now we are moving to the second subtopic of this module, which is on copyright, source, and infringement. Beginning with the concept of copyright. Copyright is not the right to copy, but rather a right that prevents users from unauthorized copying. Copying is a form of legal protection granted to creators of original work, that is, a person, body, who are responsible for the artistic and intellectual content of a document, such as literature, music, arts, and software. Copyright gives the copyright holder exclusive right to use, reproduce, distribute, perform, and display their work, meaning that copyright does not protect ideas, fact, or concept. It only protects the expression of these ideas. It can also be described as a legal right to reproduce, publish, and sell the matter and form of a literary, dramatic, musical, or artistic work. The right is tenable for a limited but long period of time, which may vary from country to country. The goal of copyright law is to encourage authors to invest effort in creating new work of art and literature. Copyright is one among the three branches of intellectual property law. The others are trademark and patent. Everyone has the right freely to participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the art, and to share in the scientific advancement and benefits. At the same time, everyone has the right to the protection of the moral and material interests resulting from any scientific, literary, or artistic production of which he or she is the author. Copyright is a moral issue as it involves fundamental questions about fairness, equity, and the ethical treatment of creative individuals. One of the most immediate consequences of unethical copyright practices is the severe damage to reputation. Copyright arose from the idea that anything we create should be protected from use by someone else. It has been clearly stated by Marsh and Campion in year 2018. To ensure ethical protection, creators of genuine content must register their work and also clearly communicate usage time, while users are reminded to be mindful of fair use of principle. Not every work of authorship or creativity is eligible for copyright. To qualify for copyright protection, a work must be both fixed and original. The law considers a word to be fixed if it is recorded in some permanent format. Acceptable ways of fixing a work include writing it down, storing it on a computer floppy disk or compact disk, that is CD, recording it on videotape, or sculpting it in a marble. If a poet think of a new poem and recite it to an audience without writing it down, copyright does not protect the poem because it is not fixed. To be original, the work must be copied from previously existing material and must display at least a reasonable amount of creativity. Copyright only protects words, notes, images that the creator has used. It does not protect any ideas or concepts revealed by the work. If, for example, a scientist publishes an article explaining a new process or procedure for refining oil, the copyright prevents others from copying the words of that article. It does not, however, prevent anyone else from using the process described to refine the oil. To protect the process, the scientist must obtain a patent. A copyright notice, which is a copyright notice informing the public that a given work is copyrighted. And such notices are usually placed in each published copy of the protected work and consists of either the word copyright, that is COPYRIGHT, or the abbreviation COP, that is COPR dot, or the symbol C in a cycle. Concept of infringement. Considering the level at which individuals, especially youth, engage in content creation using the various available social media apparatus and outlets such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, to download and rampantly share creativities at alarming rate, it is therefore become imperative for all to be conscious of the blur line between inspiration and infringement and how it can lead one to believe that claiming other people's work as their own is an acceptable norm. Infringement refers to the unauthorized use, reproduction, distribution, or display of a copyrighted work. Infringement normally occurs when a person uses a copyrighted work without permission from the copyright holder, violating those exclusive rights. The infringement of copyright can result in legal action and penalties, including fines and statutory damages. It is essential for individuals, especially students and researchers in universities and academia, to understand copyright laws to avoid violation and to respect the right of creators. Contrary to the misconception that are common known, widespread practices make it permissible, i.e., copying content from other creators and passing it off as one's ideas is illegal and considered unethical. Beyond the risk of legal repercussions and potentially lawsuits, such actions have more damaging consequences for society and individuals whose creative works are infringed upon. This statement has been curated by copyrighted in the year 2024. Copyright infringement, on the other hand, is a violation of the rights of a copyright holder when materials whose use is restricted by copyright is used without consent of the copyright holder. Plagiarism, in contrast, is concerned only with the unearned increment to the plagiarized author's reputation or the obtaining of academic credit that is achieved through false claim of authorship. Types of infringement. As we all know, copyright infringement may even be inadvertent or intentional, but the law does not exclude inadvertent files from copyright infringement. The penalties are particularly severe for those who willfully infringe, meaning that they knew or reasonably should have known that they were violating the law. In an effort to identify the various types of copyright infringement, Lubin Ostermele identified the following. Number one, email. Unauthorized printing. or sharing of the content of a document through the use of electronic mail is one of the types of infringement. The principal manner in which email can lead to copyright infringement in a research concern is the copying and forwarding of email and attachment received from another person that have copyright notices and warnings on them. Emails and perhaps the attachment that you receive from other people are copyright protected. Therefore, when you print or forward someone else's email without the author's permission, the author's exclusive rights are violated here. Even attaching a legally obtained copy of a file to an email, or copying and pasting text from one document or email into another can be a copyright infringement. Next, file sharing. With the advent of social media and the use of its components such as WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc., the act of file sharing became complex and difficult to monitor. File sharing is the act of offloading or downloading a content file, such as Word document, a PDF file, an e-book, images, etc., from or to an online service where anyone can copy the file. An online peer-to-peer site facilities of sharing a file. The most well-known example of peer-to-peer file sharing sites are for music sharing, video sharing, etc. File sharing is also common on FTP sites, that is File Transfer Protocol. FTP allows the transfer of files across a network from one computer to another. The sharing of copyrighted resources is a violation of copyright and an infringement of the rights of the copyright holder. Networking. Networking is somewhat like file share. They have certain similarities and features. Copyright infringement can occur with the simple posting of copyrighted content on a public or private network where other people can also access it and then copy or further transfer the infringing content, thereby confounding the infringement. If a paid premium type content that licensed to a user and meant only for one person in place on a network, the copyright infringement occurs because the license has exceeded the license terms by sharing, that is beyond one person to more person, i.e. by wrongfully distributing the content on a public or private network. Next is photocopying. Photocopying have long been a copyright infringement tool. Yeah, there have been long copyright infringement tool if used to copy material that is properly subject to copyright. If so, only the copyright holders have the exclusive right to copy, that is to say, subject to exception such as fair use. The fair use, as we know, is a doctrine allows some use of copyrighted material without the copyright owner's permission. Public policy for this exception is to help fulfill the creativity that copyright law intends to promote. Common use is considered to be fair use of copyrighted work for news reporting or for teaching purposes, scholarship, research, social artistic or intellectual criticism and comments. Next is printing. There is no legal difference between using photocopier to infringe versus sending a file to a printer. The only difference is mechanical. With a photocopier, the original copyrighted work is printed on paper, and with printer, the impringer is sending a digital file to be printed. It is useful to know When printing, if the publisher has expressly limited how many times it is copyrighted work may be printed under whatever license may have been issued with the content. In contrast to licensed hard copy content, a publicly accessible web page is the opposite because it is publicly available and no license is needed to access the page. Unlimited copies in this regard can be made unless the web page states otherwise. Next is privacy and counterfeiting. Privacy and counterfeiting is the copying, passing off, and selling of copyrighted content as if it is original, but it is actually owned by a third party. The last type of infringement here is scanning. Scanning can create an unauthorized digital copy of licensed or otherwise copyrighted work. It is entirely possible to imprint copyrighted material without first having a license, even without the physical copy in hand. To avoid infringement, it is same inquiry as with printing or photocopying, whether the material is copyrighted, subject to a license, limited as to number of copies, and does an exception like fair use apply. Consequences of unethical practices in research. Unethical practices in research can lead to several serious consequences, including loss of credibility, where researchers may lose their reputation and credibility within the academic and scientific community, legal repercussions. Engaging in unethical practices can result in legal action, including lawsuits and fines. All these are part of the consequences that can affect somebody's reputation. Next, retraction of publications. Research findings may be retracted from journal, affecting the author's careers and funding opportunities. Damage to institutions. There is no doubt that these unethical practices can damage the reputation of an institution, particularly universities and organizations. So, organization involved can face reputational damage, loss of funding, and decreased trust from public and stakeholders. Impact on public policy. Unethical research can misinform public health and policy decisions, potentially leading to harmful outcome, harm to participants. Ethical violation can jeopardize the rights and welfare of research participants, leading to psychological or physical harm. Loss of funding. Researchers may lose grants or funding opportunities from institutions, philanthropies that patronize ethical standards. Academic sanctions. Institutions may enforce disciplinary actions, including termination or suspension of researchers involved in unethical behavior. Plagiarism. Plagiarism means submitting others' work as your own. It is a representation of another person's language, thoughts, ideas, or expression as one's own original work. Although precise definitions vary depending on the institution, in many countries and cultures, plagiarism is considered a violation of academic integrity as well as social norms around learning, teaching, research, fairness, respect, and responsibility. Plagiarism is the act of presenting someone else's work, ideas, or words as your own without giving them proper credit, that is, proper acknowledgement. It is considered a form of theft, academic theft, and is a breach of honesty in the academic community. Although it can be unintentional, copying someone else's work without proper credit amount to stealing. It is an ethical problem in research communication because you may benefit by harming other researchers. As such, a person or entity that is determined to have committed plagiarism is often subject to various punishment and sanctions, such as suspension, expulsion from school, or work, fines, imprisonment, and other penalties. Plagiarism is a gross infringement of the right of a copyright holder. Types of plagiarism. Plagiarism can take various forms, each with distinct characteristics. Below are some common types that we are going to discuss, beginning with direct plagiarism. Direct plagiarisms imply the act of copying someone else's work word for word without attribution. In several instances, researchers go to the school library, to the university library, or any academic library, or any type of library, or even using online resources to find related work to their area of research, and from which very large part of the work is lifted to form a part of their research work without any proper acknowledgement. This is what we call direct plagiarism. The next is self-plagiarism. That is reusing one's own previous published work without acknowledgement. This is when you publish or republish or resubmit part of your own papers or reports without properly citing your original work. This is problematic because you may benefit from presenting your ideas as new and original even though they have already been published elsewhere in the past. Next is mosaic plagiarism. That is intercepting copied phrases or ideas from various sources into one's own work without proper citation. Interspacing, that is to insert something into or among other things, like a word, phrase, idea gathered from other sources, and claim such knowledge, idea, or information to be used. That is in the absence of any proper acknowledgement or proper citation. Paraphrasing plagiarism, that is to rewarding someone else's ideas or text without giving credit. Sometimes we call this paraphrase, rewarding paraphrase, to rearrange, to change the arrangement of words in a statement, in a sentence, and without a proper citation or acknowledgement. Next, which is number 5, is accidental plagiarism. Maybe as a result of the ignorance of the law, but there is not accepted here. There is no excuse. Accidental plagiarism implies unintentionally failing to cite sources or misquoting them, often due to a lack of understanding of citation rules. As a rule, researchers are expected to have very good knowledge. Ignorance is not accepted, it's not an excuse. They need to have a very good knowledge on referencing and citation techniques and procedures applicable in their area of specialization or acceptable within their institution of learning or research. Next, which is number six, among the types of plagiarism, is source-based plagiarism. Citing a source that does not exist or misrepresenting the source material. This usually happens when a researcher in the course of a study manufactures sources that neither exist nor lead to any previous study. They are usually false claims or misrepresentation of data in order to support an ongoing study. This is absolutely wrong and is totally not accepted. And the last one is the collusion. Collaborating with others, that is to collaborate with others to produce work that is submitted as one's own without proper acknowledgement of the collaboration. Citation and referencing in academic writing. The prevalence of unethical practices among researchers in institutions of higher learning necessitated the need to put in place modalities for creating awareness and tutoring potential researchers the rudiments of adopting and applying proper referencing and citation technique in the conduct of research. Leader et al. Defines citation and referencing as the way to reference or cite other texts. The way to reference or cite others' texts. Referencing and citation are the most common academic practices in which an author acknowledges the use of the works of others when writing scholarly work. Citation is the presentation of a source or work in the body of the text, whereas references are the complete list of all sources used in a work, which is presented at the end of the work using a given style. The ability to cite and organize references and sources used in writing scholarly works is one of the skills that students and other scholars must learn as they become part of the academic and scholarly community. In the conduct of research, there exist different but universally approved referencing and citation styles used across different countries, institutions, and professions in the world. Their differences can be seen in the technique used in writing them, both at in-text, citation, and reference list entries. Several factors account for the variations in the choice of citation and referencing style, such as areas of specialization and profession. Examples of them are Harvard style, Chicago style, Modern Language Association, MLA style, American Psychological Association, APA style, etc. etc. American Psychological Association style. Among the various citation and referencing style mentioned in the previous slide, the APA style is the most commonly used among academic institutions for the conduct of research. Therefore, within the present discussion, attention will be paid in explaining the APA style. The APA style is a writing style and documentation format created by the American Psychological Association. It is the most common style used in college and professional writing, especially in the social sciences, education, and other fields. APA style helps writers create clear, precise, and inclusive sentences while also ensuring that sources are properly cited. When working with the APA, there are two things to keep in mind: in-text citation and the reference page or list of reference. In-text citation refers to citation of scholarly articles using the author's name and year of publication as found within the text in a given research. While in-text citation can be made by direct quotation in a verbatim, that is from the original text, or it can be made in a paraphrasing mode. List of references refers to the systematic and comprehensive arrangement of all the sources cited within the body of a given work, usually placed at the end of individual chapters or at the end of the final chapter. Including a list of references is necessary for two primary reasons. First, it tells the reader that you have done your research as the writer on the topic you have chosen. This makes you more credible on the topic. Second, a references list gives readers enough information to help them find any of your sources that may be interested in reading on their own. With all this information, it may be very difficult for the reader to find your sources. How to format a reference. There are several basic rules to follow to format each reference, and it is important for the student to understand that each type of reference does have slightly different requirements. Below are examples of the most common type of references. But first, let's look at the basic rules that apply to most references. There are some important basic information you should look for in your sources that you will need to include in each reference. This information must be provided in a particular order, but sometimes this information is not relevant to some types of references. It's not relevant to some type of references. There are other sources that may also require different or additional information, such as music, film, television, and digital sources. However, most sources used in academic papers will typically follow this order. That is author's name, publication date, title of the source, title of the book or journal or website or the source, volume and issue number, usually only journals, magazine and newspaper have this, page numbers, DOI number, or cross-ref link for an academic journal source. There are several key points to note when formatting your list of references. References should start with the word references, in quotation mark, references, without the quotation mark. Take note. Centered at the top of the page, this word should be bolded, but neither underlined nor written with capital letters. It should look exactly as it appears in this book. References in a normal title case form. According to APA references format, references should be listed in alphabetical order, but whatever appears first in each entry. And the references should be formatted the same as the rest of your paper with 1 inch margin. Your references should also be double-spaced all the way through. This means that each line of each entry should be double-spaced, not just between entries, and no extra line space should be inserted between entries. Although APA does not have a specific required font, fonts that are difficult to read or not commonly accessible on most computers should be avoided. Typically, instructors recommend using 12 fonts, Time New Roman fonts, but check with your instructor and follow their guidance. For every type of information resources from which an author, researcher consult during the conduct of a research, the seventh edition of the APA makes provision on how it should be formatted, both within the text and in the reference list. The format for French resources varies from those of electronic resources. Examples of the commonly used information resources are journal, books, encyclopedia, magazines and newspapers, web pages, photographs and videos, Wikipedia entry, government documents, etc., etc. For step-by-step details on how to format any of the above-mentioned sources, check the content of the complete text on this module. Additional materials are available for better understanding of the module. Leave your questions or comments in the discussion segment and forum. Thank you for listening.